Yo, 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 what is going on? It is the Crazy Rider right here right now, back with chapter 27 of my Invader Zim fan fiction. You guys ain't ready for this because this story, it just keeps getting better and better, I swear. By now, you all know the drill. Sit back, relax, and enjoy it all right here, right now. Chapter 27 Doomed? Zim and I sat together at lunch, trying not to be disgusted by the dark green something that was in front of us. Even I wouldn't eat something so strange. Zim was taking it to a whole new level. He was wearing goggles and an extra set of protective gloves as he tried to investigate the substance. Things have been interesting between the two of us since the whole X-ray goggle thing. It was like we couldn't quite look at each other the same way anymore. We had exposed ourselves to each other in a way that I hadn't expected us to at this point. We still talked to each other the same as we always do, still spent the same amount of time together as before. In fact, we might even be spending more time together than we had been. It was just that our relationship was altered in some way I couldn't quite explain. An elephant in the room, if you will. Zim poked at the green bile with his spoon before realizing nearly the entire cafeteria was staring at him. He removed his goggles and purple gloves before picking up his spoon again. I wasn't eating a single bite of this stuff, even if I was commanded to do so. Zim scooped the goop into his mouth and sat there for a moment. He then started coughing the substance up and tearing up. "Delicious! Delicious!" he cried and stood on the table. "I'm normal!" All the other children moved away from us, so Zim continued poking at the poor excuse for food while I watched. Suddenly, a muffin flew out of nowhere and hit Zim in the head. While I sat beside him, Zim and I both looked around. "What? Who?" he cried. Zim snatched the muffin from the table. "Who did this? Who dares to soil my normal boy head with this pork cow?" "That's a stinking muffin!" shouted Punchy from the next table. "Silence!" Zim shouted. "Whatever this is, I will find the beast who threw it. I will find you. Sleep peacefully now, for it will be the last peaceful sleep you will know from this moment on." "But we're not asleep right now," another child shouted from the crowds of the cafeteria. "You silent," I barked at the child. "Come, Zim, we get our revenge." Zim and I left the cafeteria, Zim still carrying the muffin. "The evildoer of this horrible deed could only be the dipstink," Zim said, holding up the muffin. "I have a plan to get him to admit to this horrible mistake. Come, Liz." We ditched the rest of the school day to go back to Zim's house to begin his plan. Zim started up this virtual reality simulator, and we waited until night to move the sleeping Dib into the simulator room. I sat with Zim in the observation deck to see the simulator simulate these alien creatures called microbes, give Dib strange powers. The microbes put him to sleep when they were finished, and the simulator changed today. Dib entered the kitchen where Gaz was eating her burnt toast. He put his own slice of bread in the toaster and sat down with a large smile on his face. "What an amazing morning, isn't it?" he chimed. Gaz spat toast crumbs in his face and he wiped them away. "No, really, something's different." Just then the toast flew out of the toaster and Dib buttered and bit into it in midair. The buttered toast landed right on the plate and Dib landed on his feet. "It wasn't a dream," he said, looking at his hands. "I really was chosen." Professor Membrane entered the kitchen. "Son, you're looking in good spirits today. You must have finally seen the light about studying real science." "No, Dad," Dib corrected. "These alien shoes came into my room and gave me some kind of gift. I know how that sounds, but it's true." Dib demonstrated by somersaulting through the air to the fridge. He opened the fridge where he grabbed a carton of orange juice and a glass. He held the glass upside down above the OJ as the OJ defied gravity into the glass. Dib drank and then allowed the carton and glass to float back into the fridge. "Those aliens were demented hallucinations," Membrane said and held a device to his son's head. "But your DNA does seem to have evolved beyond that of a normal human being's." Gaz said, coming into the conversation. "I guess I'm sorry for being so mean to you all those times, then." I whispered to Zim in the booth. "Gaz not so nice. Off character." "Shh!" Zim put his finger in front of his mouth and continued the simulation. This is just incredible," Dib said with glee. I should see if whatever this is really will help me deal with Zim. I'm going to head over to his base. Hey, I'm speaking out loud to myself in an unnatural manner. Oh well." So Dib flew towards Zim's house, where he dodged all the lawn gnomes and landed in front of the purple door. He knocked and was greeted by the simulation Zim in disguise. "Huh?" "I've got a few things to tell you, Zim," Dib said to Zim, and then told him a few things. He finished with, "And that's all I have to say about that." Okay," Zim responded and went to get his things. Gur joined him at his side in front of the door. "I can't argue with that, Dib. You've won. I'm giving myself up to the Earth authorities. Best of luck to both you and Liz and all your future endeavors. It's been nice working with you, Gur. Now self-destruct." "Finally!" Gur cheered and laughed before exploding. I whispered to Zim again. "Where I at?" "You'll see soon. Now be quiet," Zim whispered back. The Zim in the simulator climbed into a police car that took him away. Dib was left in front of the base alone. "This feeling," he said to himself. "The power. It isn't going away. Things really will be different for me from now on. At last. Yeah!" A short while later, Dib was being interviewed on television. "You've opened the world's eyes to the existence of aliens, Dib," said the reporter. "Now what?" "There are many other mysteries still unsolved," Dib responded. "I figure, I'll do some of that." "Dib!" The simulation me finally showed up. She ran on just as I would, and started hugging Dib in front of the cameras. "Dib, oh, you so brave, Dib! You right all along! Zim evil alien, and you save us all!" Dib hugged me in return. "Aw, it was nothing, Liz. Somebody has to protect this planet, am I right?" He flashed a shiny smile at the cameras while I went on praising him. A few years in the future, I helped Dib to discover some ghosts. He presented them to several news teams by pulling down a curtain. There they were, Shakespeare, Abe Lincoln, and some janitor. The crowd was amazed. "Dib rocks! Oh, I love you, Dib!" "That my Dib," I said to Dib in the cameras. Another few years later, I was at Dib's side as he revealed some lake monsters. "And to prove that the lake spooky monster is real, this task force has granted me permission to drain the lake." A button appeared and Dib used his energized hand to slice the button. Within seconds the lake drained to reveal a series of grotesque monsters. "That my Dib," I said to Dib in the cameras. "My Dib?" I repeated the words to Zim in the booth. "Do not question Zim," he told me. The time jumped so that Dib and I were 30 years old, and we went to visit Zim in his little tube. "Dib!" Zim shouted at our entrance. "It's been years, Zim," Dib said to him. 20 of your years, to be precise, Zim specified, enduring these indignities. The only reason I have not tried to escape is because it amuses me. Hello, wolf child. I chuckled and waved to the alien. Me not child anymore. Dib continued. Amuses you to what? Ah, yes, the invasion, Zim said. I didn't say anything about the invasion, Dib told him. Just let happen, Dibby, my simulating self told Dib. Dibby? I said the word to Zim in the booth. What's going on here? I'll explain later, now be quiet, Zim told me in the booth. You didn't? Simulation Zim asked Dib. Well, you were supposed to. Well, they'll be here. The Armada will come, and there's nothing you can do about it. We'll see, Zim. We'll see. Dib responded and then dragged me out the door by my arm. It was maybe 20-ish years later when it happened. The Armada had arrived, and it was time for Dib and the rest of the Earth to fight. Though I was still in Dib's life, I wasn't going to be directly involved with this battle. Instead, I was in charge of keeping an eye on Earth, and leading the Earth animals into battle if Dib's army failed. Luckily, Dib did not fail. He brought down the Massive and the rest of the Armada. He had saved the Earth once again. Dib landed back on Earth, on the platform with the President and I. We stood before a crowd of praising humans and many Earth animals. Behind us, the Massive crashed into the ground and snacks landed everywhere. Dib was given an award by the President, and I wrapped my arm around his waist. "That my Dib," I said to Dib in the cameras. Now Dib and I were 70 years old. An elder Dib was being interviewed for a great talk show, and an elder me was sitting in the very front row. "You've lived quite a full life, haven't you, Dib?" the interviewer asked. "Yes, Alan," Dib responded. "It was everything I could have ever hoped for, and more. And I even got to ride a moose." Everyone awed and clapped, including me. "Of course," Dib went on, "it wouldn't have been the same if I didn't get to share it with someone special. And I did. I got to share it with my beautiful, amazing wife, Liz Membrane, and our 9 children." The crowd clapped again, and a tear slid down my wrinkled old cheek. In the booth, however, my jaw had dropped, and I was speechless. Zim had set it up so that I had married Dib. That's why I was always at his side. That's why I always said "that my Dib" and called him Dibby and wrapped my arms around him like that. I was his wife? Is that how Zim sees us? He sees Dib and I as mates? No, I could never marry Dib. How could Zim think such a thing? I was used to Gaz and Professor Membrane accusing us of such, but not the person that I really did want to spend my life with. "Yes, well," Alan continued the interview, "we thank you for sharing your incredible life with us and for allowing the human race to survive." "Oh yes," Dib nodded. "You're welcome." "Oh, and if I may say," Alan said with curiosity, "there's one final question that would settle the curiosity of your many fans. Did you throw the muffin at Zim's head?" Dib looked a little bashful and chuckled nervously. "Wow, that's going back a long way. As a matter of fact, I did." "Aha!" Alan's head suddenly turned into Zim's, along with the entire crowd's, including my own. They all laughed at Dib, and soon the simulation ended. Dib was sitting in a chair, and he was 11 again. He looked incredibly dumbfounded, and I didn't blame him. I would have been laughing alongside Zim, but I was still in shock myself that he had made me Dib's wife. "I knew it!" Zim shouted at Dib. "I knew it was you!" "What?" Dib asked, looking up at us. "Get out," Zim said, and Dib headed for the door. "Oh, just one more thing." Zim pushed a button. A large weapon came out of nowhere and aimed itself at Dib's head. I stood to my feet, but for some reason didn't feel all that compelled to save Dib this time. The weapon charged up and then launched the same muffin at Dib's head. Dib wobbled to the door as Zim laughed maniacally. Before he exited, Dib looked up to the booth at us. "You stink, Zim." Then it was over. Dib was gone and Zim had his revenge. Zim continued laughing and then stood from his seat. "I have been a great success, haven't I?" "Zim." "Now come, my dear Liz." Zim ignored my soft voice. "Zim. Come and let us—" "Zim!" "What?" Zim finally looked my way. I had been on 2 feet since I stood up at the weapon's entrance. Now I lowered myself to 4s and took a couple steps closer to Zim. Why? Why you make me dib mate? Oh, that, Zim said, looking to the side. Well, what else was Zim supposed to do with you, Liz? It was just a stupid simulation. But not accurate, I told Zim. I never married Dib. I not love him. Zim's antennas perked up and he looked back at me excitedly. You don't? That's great, Liz. I mean, good. He's a filthy stink beast. I chuckled. Stupid humans. Oh, ho, ho. Now that was exciting. What did you kids think of that, huh? Well, if that's all you guys have to say, then I guess that's all I have to say. I will see you little darlings next time, and remember, keep your crazy.